let's take another round or a final round of comments, ideas, proposals, suggestions, criticisms, whatever.
Is anybody in favour of the third runway?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not in favour of the third runway. No. I'm just running across my mind that to some extent we're able to propose more ecologically friendly alternatives to things like carbon extraction. We're able to pose slightly more ecologically friendly alternatives to the car in terms of moving on to rail transport. And then if you start thinking a bit further ahead, what about, for instance, moving transport onto canals again? That, it sounds like science fiction, but we're dealing with an unprecedented situation and we've got to find unprecedented solutions. I just wonder whether there's anybody knows, or if any research is being done, about alternatives to jet air transport. I mean, I don't think anybody can seriously stand up and say, we want no more flights at all of any kind, but is there something we could, would it be feasible to go back to prop aircraft? Would it be feasible even to use airships instead of using jets, which, and jets churn out the more pollution than I think either of those did. But I mean, I'd have to have a scientist in the room. Well, maybe there is one, I don't know.
I'm not a scientist, but there's very little work. I mean, I think jet aircraft will be with us for a while. I mean, I think people are looking at alternatives, but jet aircraft will be for a while. I mean, I think what the industry is trying to do, and probably is motivated to do, is to try and come up with aircraft which emit fewer emissions. And I think what we are doing is, that's also, I think the aviation industry is motivated to do that for two reasons. First of all, I think they do understand that they've got to contribute to a reduction in climate change emissions. I don't think they realise they can't get away without doing that. I think that's one thing. I think the second thing is if they are able to use less fuel, that actually saves money. So I do think over the next 15 to 20 years we are going to see a cleaner aircraft with less CO2. I think that's the way it's going to go, certainly in the immediate future, rather than a different sort of play. The question though is at what rate they're going to become cleaner, and I think some of the claims they're made are somewhat doubtful.
Yeah, I was wondering, Kerry, but do you want to comment on this specifically?
Yeah.
Go for it, yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to come in generally around the binary, around you can either have jobs or you can have an environment. Because, and I was thinking a bit more about what you said about TUC conference, and I think there are many ways to skin a cat. And I think there's one way is going down to Barney with our comrades, and another way, Ramsky and hegemony and all that, is to convince people that it's investment, because it is investment. In 2012, I think that there were news reports saying we've just had the most amount of people using rail travel since World War II. So we haven't moved ahead in rail since World War II in 60 years. We should have more people on, if there are more people travelling, they should be travelling on greener, safer transport, and we should invest in that. So I think that we should talk to people about investing in moving goods and people around the country in a safe and green way, and so that we get them to understand that we're still, moving forward. Patrick McLaughlin said we need to move forward, as though we're against that. We're not against moving forward. We're not against investment. We're not against growth in the economy. It's a serious economic point. We're not against growth. And the green movement isn't against growth. It's about doing it with the best way and ignoring the sort of getting behind the subsidies, exposing the subsidies, exposing the lobbying that goes on behind this, and talk in very sensible terms about what the best way is of moving people. I think that we're supposed to be, people think that we're supposed to be wearing hair shirts or something. There's actually a way of reducing, our emissions while still maintaining the economy. We will have to reduce it, down the line, but we need to start now with, talking about how we do things better. And I think that sort of, if we can get people to agree on things that change the situation, maybe we do it that way.
somebody take Pete, and then and I think I'm just going to keep it out here for a wee while, and then we'll bring you guys.
Yeah, I mean, talking about having arguments with our friends, I'm a member of the Green Party, as some of you may know. And when you say the Green movement is not against growth, well, I have to tell you, quite a lot of them are. You will hear Green Party spokespeople saying we are against growth and that's why we're different from Labour. It isn't actually true, because the Green Party also supports 1 million climate jobs, and I think that if you implemented the 1 million climate jobs programme, you would still have economic growth as conventionally defined for quite a while, you know, in the construction of a low carbon economy. There's also, you know, I don't want to open a can of worms, but I just want to say I have opened a can of worms, I'm sorry. But I mean, you know, I just want to say there's a debate to be had in the Green movement itself about this issue. And it has to be had in a sensible way. You can't have green fundamentalists just saying, no growth. But, you know, you've got to put the case slightly more subtly than saying, well, you're wrong, and that's it.
Any other comments of this?
Just going back to the counter-proposing, you can have a job or clean environment, and the Cappers love to try and divide people that way. I recently went to the protest at the Open Cast Mine for Tidfield on break free from fossil fuels initiatives, which was fantastic action. It felt quite strange. You know, I was involved with miners strike years ago, and coal knocked old, and you know, I did get quite a few salty comments, but I'm going to close it down now. But having said that, and having met ex-miners in the area, the NUM have never supported open cast mining anyway. It's clear to them you know, that it's one filthy site being proposed with another filthy site, it's affecting 50,000 people, very few jobs, and it doesn't make sense. But it's interesting because exactly that argument is what the press tried to do. They almost tripped somebody up. It's a very good spokesperson, but we hadn't really maybe filtered through. And they were saying, I think it was on the radio, they were saying to somebody at the camp, so you're going to close the steelworks down then? And they kept, and I think the person said, well, there are alternatives. And actually, we had some discussions about million climate jobs, and some really good discussions there. And we talked to there's quite a lot of young people who don't have experience of trade unions, and I said, well, what you do is actually you get to the picket lines, you go, you know, we didn't have conversations about maybe there's potential for occupation of some of these things, of taking them on, you know. If you took something on, what could you do with it if it was democracy in the workplace? And also, we believe that probably not enough studies have been done about, say, blast furnaces, which say they absolutely need to have coal and coke for the process. I mean, I don't do chemistry, maybe there isn't, but if there wasn't, where you had to use, say, brand new steel as opposed to recycled steel, which you can produce in a different way, well, then maybe we just save the coal just for that and then move on. So it's saying, no, we're with everybody, we're not about closing down jobs. So, yeah, having debate about the airport expansion, but in the context of just transition, making it better for everybody, because those communities have just been abandoned, and it's you know, in South Wales, and it's looking to kind of maybe target the areas too where the jobs are so needed, and where the cleaning jobs are taken just to break the unions. Just very lastly on the point about I think the air industry, you know, they will look at it, but it'll be sneaky biofuels through backdoor causing problems elsewhere. You know, so I think the argument is no, of course we're not going to say no flying, but you know, really, who is flying? Where are the short haul business trips or short haul flights that we don't need? And when we've got a railway that's joined up with Europe and it's affordable, or we can go to Barcelona and afford to go to Barcelona by train in 11 hours, it would be joyous. But we've got to keep going for public and democratic, kind of rail and energy, because we now have a joint up energy policy, and really, if we owned the airports and had nationalised airways too, then you could join them up, couldn't you? It's that they're divided and privatised. That's such a problem.
I mean, take yourself, and then I'm going to look for any more hands, and if there are any more hands, then I think that we'll bring in John and Kerry and we'll close the meeting there. However, there are some proposals on the table, use proposals in this informal atmosphere, but probably worth sort of just thinking about whether we could work those up a little bit as well. So, Phil.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you just said. You know, that's a sort of hopeful message we could say, that there actually are alternatives as well. And I think the other thing to say, and I probably sound pessimistic here, but I was just thinking about, you know, historically. I mean, you said something about 76,000 jobs, I think it was.
That's not true right now.
Now, many years ago, I did a master's degree where I actually studied the docks in East London, where they employed 56,000 jobs at their peak. And what I'm really trying to get to is the fact that the system, the economic system we have, capitalism, does actually shift and change. It shifts and changes its own benefits. And of course, those jobs have gone. All of those jobs have gone. There are no jobs left in East London. And that was a massive cultural and social shift. The market didn't handle that very well. That's all. That didn't handle it at all. What happened is they just closed down the docks. Workers tried to resist it, and one of the things I actually studied, and they closed down the docks. That left, you know, an area of East London which was a complete social mess. And I think the argument to say that you know, with climate change is going to happen. Either we take control of the situation, as Ken said, in terms of what proposals we're talking about, or the alternative is absolutely unthinkable, really. It's talking about millions of people being thrown out of work, and inequality becoming worse, not taking a chance. This is the argument we really have to put forward. We've got a chance here to actually engage with how we take the thing forwards. What sort of jobs should people be doing? You know, how can we move from the kind of industries that grew up in the Industrial Revolution? Again, people didn't have any say in that. It happened because of market forces. And how can we generate a different way of thinking? And the final thing I want to say, and you know, the thing that has occurred to me on several occasions, I'm not a member of the Labour Party, actually, I'm a member of the Socialist Workers' Party, but actually, I started thinking, you know, Corbyn, McDonald, where are they on this? I mean, I don't know, so if you'd be probably able to tell me on that. And can this debate go into the Labour movement through those meetings as well? Because I think it's a really hopeful thing that we've got people who are different leading the Labour Party. I think it's really a good thing.
Can I just in terms, before I bring speakers in, John, Kerry, do you want to go first? But I want to say something just before.
I'll let Kerry have the last word.
Okay, all right, so we'll bring it in again. And I just want to say, so just in terms of the growth thing, I think there's another discussion to be had about growth, because the presentation of this idea of growth, and it ends up being accepted by all sides, is though there is something real happening. You know, growth, something real has happened. Often, or if you look at our last 20 years, there isn't something real has happened, or the real thing that happened is not that people's living standards and lifestyles have improved. Actually, you see quite a big contraction. So we have this generation of people growing up whose futures look a lot bleaker than their parents' generation, who potentially look a lot bleaker than their grandparents' generation. What we've had, this growth word has become a kind of it's a way of describing something that hasn't really happened. What has happened is a minority of people have got increasingly richer. And that's happened globally, and it's happened in this country. And somehow that's not challenged, and I think that needs to be challenged. So really, we also need to talk about redistribution of wealth. So actually, with proper redistribution of wealth, then actually we don't need to put the emphasis on growth in the way that we worry about the unsustainability of that. Second thing I think just is on the transport issue, and I've said it in terms of travel across Europe, because one of the arguments that is used around the third runway and airport expansion more generally is an argument against those who argue against that, is that somehow they're saying to working class people that they can't have holidays, that they're kind of limiting the opportunities for working class people. In reality, it's quite amazing how few working class people are able to take holidays. It's a very low percentage of people that can afford to take an annual holiday in terms of the general population. It's also fascinating, John, I think you've given me these figures before. of the actual income of people going through Heathrow Airport, and the average income of people going through Heathrow Airport is not the average income of most working class people. And then finally, just in terms of holidays, that most of the reason why people do not travel by train, partly cultural and whatever, but every time I put it on Eurostar, and there's always a family there, and they're the first time on Eurostar, and they arrive in Paris or wherever it is, Brussels, go, wow, that was really good, that was so quick, I had no idea I could get to the station at the other end. And the reason why people don't do it is partly cost, and it's partly time. And if we had better holidays for working people, they had more time to get their family from A to B, rather than have to squeeze it in over, the annual one. So I think that these are kind of broader issues in terms of versus trade unions and what we. And finally, though, I just want to say in terms of the point that you made, I do think that one of the key issues is about the lack of debate around the question of third runway. Yes, of course, it's always about trying to win as much common ground as possible, but I think the trade union movement, has debated contentious and difficult things in the past. We have a history and a tradition of doing it, often in advance of other sections of society. And I think this is where the problem has very much emerged around the runway, that we haven't had an opportunity to do what the trade union movement can do well, which is to listen to each other, to hear the different sides of the argument. And I just think that's absolutely necessary. All we are hearing is one side, and it's a side which stresses that there is no alternative, we need it because of jobs, and I just think we have to have that debate opened up. And one way of doing that is to get those motions in, and have more public debate, open debate. I think it should be welcome. How it ends up, how the resolution ends up, you just wouldn't know that. But I think it would be important for the trade union movement to actually have that as a more open debate, bringing in all the different kinds of things that we talked about tonight. So I'm sorry I haven't got a place on the platform here, but I just did that. And you want me to say something about 1 million climate jobs?
No, I won't say something.